Good evening, welcome. It's Thursday. This is TP Auctions Live, where we talk about watches from the auction. We have 2 days to go, and today we're joined by our very good friend Elias.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
How's your week?
Good so far, thanks.
So the good thing about watches is you start to learn more about the people. And we were talking earlier that you were, this week and last week, tell us what you're doing on the diving side. Because it relates to watches.
So this week I've started my Dive Master course, which is the first level where I can actually start teaching people how to dive, helping them out with diving. So I've been diving for 12 years, so this is actually 13 years. So I'm now taking the next step into
where you teach people.
Where I can start teaching people, yes.
And do you take any particular watch with diving?
Well, you wear a computer and you can wear a dive watch to keep time. Most people use computers now, but I still like wearing a dive watch.
So you still use dive watches?
Yeah, and I wear usually I've been wearing my Tudor Perregaux.
Nice.
And the last time I was out on a dive, someone actually asked me, he's like, "You actually wear that diving? Isn't it very fancy?" I was like, "No, it's meant to be worn diving.
It's a tool watch."
Yeah, so I will use it as it's meant to be used. No safe queens for me.
So Elias is one of the few people who actually uses a watch for its actual purpose.
Absolutely.
All right, so with the sessions that we do usually, we do categories, and we did this with you last time round.
Sure.
So Elias has picked some of his top picks based on the categories that we have chosen for him. So we're going to go through them. Give us your rundown, why you chose these watches and why you think it's a good pick. But generally, what do you think of the auction? This is auction number 16. What do you think to the collection and overall?
It's a really nice collection, quite varied. I mean, you've got your heavy hitters with a bunch of Omegas, a bunch of Tudors, a bunch of Rolexes, that bread and butter, but also a lot of very different brands, JP, Bulgari, I'm seeing, some micro brands, Breitling, IWC, so it's quite a well-rounded auction, I'd say, with a lot of options for pretty much everyone. So if you're looking for a watch, I'm sure you'll find something that tickles your fancy on this auction.
And before we start, let's do a wrist check. What have you got on your wrist today?
I'm wearing my Zenith Defy skeleton.
Did you pick this up in the auction?
I picked this up directly from an authorized dealer.
All right, enough of that. This is very nice. Why did you pick this?
It's quite unique. I typically don't go for skeletons, but this one wasn't overly in your face. I like the slim profile, the sportiness of the band. So it just, tickled my fancy, as I was saying before.
We have had this in the auction, just to state a point. Ready?
Yes, that's
all right. So first category, Elias, from the watches in the auction, top pick for an entry-level watch that is 5,000 dirhams or under as a reserve price. Sure. What did you pick?
So I picked the Longines GMT here. I forget the exact...
this is the Zulu time.
Yeah, the Zulu time. I'm a big fan of Longines in general, very high quality watches. This is a relatively recent release. Good size, lovely color. The GMT functionality is great. The ceramic bezel is great. The waterproofness is great. So, for example, I'm going to the Maldives in a week.
Is that a name drop?
If I owned this watch, this would be the perfect one because it's great for travel, it's great for being on the beach. And you wouldn't take something too fancy that you'd worry about losing.
And you can own it. You can just
all you have to do is bid.
Yes,
I have to bid. I'll consider it actually when I saw this now.
Zulu is it means GMT.
Yes, Zulu time.
Yes, but I forgot which language. So this is his.
I think it's a military.
Yeah, I think so. I read about it somewhere. I just can't remember the word where the word Zulu originates from. So this is Elias's top pick for 5,000 dirhams, and that's the reserve price actually on this watch. All right, next category. And I know you've had a few of this brand in the past, but your favorite Omega from the auction, which watch would you pick and why?
So my current favorite Omega in your auction would be the new release Seamaster in green. The Seamaster is a classic one. I picked the Seamaster last time around as well.
The blue one, was it?
The blue one. So now you have a green one on the auction, and I just think given the unique color, green has been quite in this last year. And I think they really hit the colorway spot on with this one. This would be my pick for my favorite Omega in the auction.
What do you think of their Omega's green? A lot of people did green in 2022.
Yeah.
What do you think of their green?
I think they got a spot on. It's more olive in color, which I'm a fan of. It's not very bright or neon or in your face like some of the IWCs that you might see out there, for example. So I'm a big fan of this. I think it works really well.
And you've owned a Seamaster in the past, right?
I have, yes.
See, people have heard what you've said and they're so excited that the bell is ringing and they're already coming to see the watch.
I mean, the last time I did this, you had a lot of
flurry
people
of bids.
engaging. Yeah, flurry of bids. And
the
engaging.
Elias effect.
Yeah,
so someone asked on this watch, does it have box and papers? Yes, it does. This is an August 2022 full set, box and papers. This Omega Seamaster, which is Elias's favorite, also is, I think this is 2023, so it's pretty much like new. Full set, box and papers.
It only started dropping in stores in the last few months, so yeah.
Yeah, I think this only just came out quite recently. But yeah, no, it's a great watch.
I'm gonna try it on properly after.
It's a bit of a heavy. Well, no, it's not heavy.
For me, it's 42 millimeters, but with the two crowns, it wears quite big. So if you've got big wrists, it works really well for you.
And if you've got small wrists?
Small wrists, 42 is still a decent size, but then, there's others on the table here that might be more suitable.
I think someone's asking, I think the reserve price, I need to check, it's around 16,000 dirhams.
I think so.
16. You can check the details on all of these watches and all the watches in the auction by going to tpauctions.global, which is on the description on our profile. All right, so we've done...
You can also pin it.
We can also pin it, is a suggestion from Elias. Yes?
Voice is low.
Voice is low? But my voice is always loud. Maybe it's you.
Okay, I'll speak up.
All right, so we've covered Omega, we've covered entry level. Let's go on to the beast that is Rolex. So we have a few Rolexes in the auction. We often get asked about Rolex. Rolex is a popular watch. There's no denying it.
Probably the most popular watch brand, period.
It is. It is the most popular, and for a good reason too. So from the Rolexes we have in this auction, and we have quite a few, what was your top pick and why?
This was a pretty difficult one because you have several that I like, that I've owned or would like to own. But I'd say the one that really caught my eye this time around was the Kermit, the 50th anniversary.
You have to raise your voice.
Maybe we get this a bit higher. That's why. The 50th anniversary version of the Seamaster, Submariner. I love the vintage. It's now vintage, right? Size.
It's not vintage yet. Well, I don't know what is the definition of vintage.
Vintage-ish.
They call it neo-vintage. I think is the word.
So you've got the older glass, the older bracelet, the aluminum bezel versus the ceramic. I love the size at 40 millimeters. So again, this is a classic watch, classic Rolex. Can't go wrong with it.
What do you think with the green on this bezel?
So this is a green which is a bit more in your face compared to say the Omega. But again, this is neo vintage, so
it's a sharper green.
It goes well with it, right? So, and given that the dial is black, it offsets. Like if the dial was the same green,
it'd be too much.
Too much.
But that's the Hulk.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. So this is in the auction. Reserve price at the moment, or the current price, because there's bids on it, is 40,250. This was discontinued in, I believe, it was around, like you said, it was a 50th anniversary, which means Rolex never do limited editions.
No.
They never do special editions, but they will release a watch for a few years and then stop production. And this is an example of this. I think it was stopped in 2011 or thereabouts. So these watches are great. I never like to use the word investments, but really anything for me always. Collector's pieces. Anything Rolex discontinues, I don't think their value is fully realized. And I don't think their value gets fully realized until a long time afterwards. And I think this is a case in point example. When we first started Timepiece, and I think we've known you really from the beginning, these watches were trading at 23,000 dirhams, and they were difficult to sell because people didn't like the green back then. Why green is ugly or green is too flashy, they like the black.
Yeah.
Now we're talking, these go from 50,000 and above, and over the next few years become less and less of them. And a lot of people who have seen this watch generally prefer the Kermit to the new, prefer this one to the new Starbucks.
Yeah, I'll agree with that too. There's something about the ceramic green just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, and that's the feedback from a lot of people. So I think this is a great watch with a great value. And like you said, it's a great collector's piece. So that's Rolex. Another 50th anniversary actually we have in the auction, speaking of 50th anniversaries, is the Sea Dweller.
Okay.
So we have the Sea Dweller, which is the 43 millimeters, which is the 50th anniversary for the Sea Dweller. Been out for a few years now. Rolex announces its new models, I think at the end of this month.
Very soon, yes.
Yeah, very soon. So usually what happens is rumors begin to fly, prices start to go up typically.
What's being discontinued, what's being introduced.
Yeah, so you see it a lot at the moment with
We've already seen some leaks, a lot of precious metal.
Yeah, well, a lot of the rumors are with the yellow gold Daytona with the green dial, the John Mayer Daytona. Yeah. Typically, because of the size, the 43 millimeters doesn't get a lot of attention as the others, but it's another good watch.
Not that popular.
No,
big wrists.
Because you need big wrists to be able to pull it off. And I think size now, people are tending towards the smaller size watches.
And you see it in a trend of some new releases. Things are downsizing in many brands.
Which takes us on to our next one,
Absolutely.
because they have actively been doing that.
Absolutely.
So, Tudor, which is the
Rolex's
previously
little sister,
previously referred to as the poor man's Rolex, but I think now they've established themselves as a category on their own.
They're a brand in their own right, for sure. And so the one I picked here was the Black Bay 58 in blue. It's actually a watch I own in my collection. And as you were saying, Khaled, it's great because for me it's perfect at 39 millimeters. It's actually wearing it today while diving, doing my course.
The Black Bay.
The 58. I wear both that and the Pelagos 39. So both 39 millimeters.
And you think Tudor's move to go smaller size was a good move?
They're filling a gap in the market, to be honest, because there are, as far as I can tell, no divers at this level, at this size. So, the Omega divers are at 42, Rolex divers are at 40, but, not easy to come by. These are still at a achievable price. And you know what, at 9, 10, 11,000 dirhams, I won't lose any sleep if they get a bit scratched while I'm diving.
Well, they're, like you said, they're a tool watch. They're meant to be worn, meant to be used.
So is a Submariner, but you know what? At 40,000 dirhams retail, I will lose some sleep if I dent it diving.
And you find it's very durable?
They're very durable, very comfortable, very legible. And very, can be dressed up, can be dressed down, can be used diving, can be worn with a suit. You can't go wrong with them.
And this one's at 8,900 dirhams. This one is a full set from July 2020. So still under warranty, I believe, with Tudor.
Yeah, they extended them, yes.
Yeah, and condition-wise, excellent condition, pretty much like new. All right, so we've covered some of the big brands. Let's move on to the next category, which I believe we said we'll do the independents. So we have a few, I think, actively in the auctions over the last few months. We've been featuring a lot more. Some people, there's micro brands, there's independents, but there seems to be an active movement in that space. We have a few in this auction. So what's your favorite, let's say, independent or micro brand? You may not know much about the brand, but in terms of what you like about the watch.
The one that caught my eye is this Furlan Marri chronograph. The blue is quite striking. Again, also with the 38 millimeter size, something that I've been generally gravitating towards. It's also like giving me hints of a Vacheron Constantin watch. I'm not sure which one, but the dial and the chronograph case is very reminiscent of it. The exact model is escaping me now, but it looks like a very classy, very classic watch. And despite it being a chronograph, given its how thin it is and its size, it is very much a dress watch. So this would be my pick for the independents.
And it's a great the dial. One of the things Furlan Marri do very well is their dial design. The blue, it's a dark, rich. I think blue color.
Very, very striking. It immediately caught my attention in the display.
So this particular one is it's Mecca quartz. It's this release is permanently retired, so they're not making this one again. And I think it's on the auction at the moment for, this is an unworn watch, 2,250 dirhams, which for what you call like a dress watch, which I think is a head turner, right? It would get you looking at the watch, like you said when you immediately saw it.
So it catches the eye for sure.
All right, so we've covered now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 2 more categories to go. So next one we said is, I know you're diving, but we said chronograph.
Sure.
So from the auction watches, what would be your top pick as a chronograph?
So, keeping up my striking and small chronograph.
Yeah, your tendency
selection.
on all of these watches,
Yes.
with the exception of the Omega, they're pretty small, huh?
Yes, so, and the Longines. So I picked the Zenith Lupin.
Yeah, Lupin the third.
Yes, so I'm pretty sure this is a 38 millimeter. So it's
Yes.
a very small, very light watch now in my hand. The ladder bracelet is also very unique. You don't really see that much anywhere. And let's not forget the dial. Half black, half off-white. That will definitely also catch someone's attention, right? So beautiful watch. And Zenith, I would say they are the kings of chronographs with the El Primero.
With the El Primero movement.
So can't go wrong with this selection.
I was going to add, what do you think of do you like the bracelet?
I find it very unique. I've never had the chance to wear one myself, but I think they're very, very interesting. And I'm sure in this climate, for example, very comfortable because they allow your wrist to breathe.
That's very true. I didn't think of it that way.
It's very practical.
This particular piece is limited to 250 pieces, so it is limited, and I think it's part of it's done on the back of a Lupin in 1970s. What's it called? Manga anime. So there is a story behind it. It's a revival of a piece, but it's very cool. And like you said, I really like the size, and it's an unusual dial. I don't think you can say anything more.
Something unique.
All right, last but not least. So we said for the last category is the wild card. So out of the watches in the auction, where maybe we didn't categorize it, what really floated your boat and caught your eye?
So for me, the wild card, I said I'm going to choose something with an integrated bracelet. So you have a few very nice ones in the collection.
No, sports.
Yes, sports.
Sports. All right, but anyway,
sports integrated.
2 in 1.
The one that really caught my eye is the Girard Perregaux. Am I pronouncing that right?
No.
It is
yes. I don't know.
It is the reissue, I believe, or the first reissue of this Laureato.
It's when they relaunched the Laureato, yes, in 2016.
And so, unlike the current models, this is at 41 millimeters, which is rumored to be reintroduced now. They went up to 42 recently. So, again, a very good size at 41 millimeters. Given the dial to bezel ratio, it would wear a bit smaller as well. The integrated bracelet is quite the rage these days, with many brands launching them. And you have the Laureato, the Overseas, the Royal Oak,
correct,
the Nautilus. So these are some very classic sports watches, if you will, that have the integrated bezel. I love the dial here with the pattern on it. It gives it some depth, some texture. Really a beautiful watch with the white dial. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, so this is this was launched in 2016 with the launch of the Laureato range. I think a lot of people who are into watches have seen the hype with GP over the last probably last 2 years.
Yeah.
And they've gone to some prices wise big heights.
But they're
they're back at interesting levels, and I think we've always said over the last few weeks, regardless of where the pricing is, if you're buying a watch because you like it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the added benefit now is that watches have come back to interesting levels for genuine collectors who were looking for a watch. Now is a good probably time to buy. This example is on the auction, I think, for around 32,000 dirhams, limited to 250 pieces, I believe. So this is a great collector's piece. There's a story behind it. It's limited, and it's part of a brand which has a lot of history, a lot of depth, and it's the start of their the restart of their Laureato range. So for me personally, and it's a full set, box and papers, it's a great watch at a great price, trading below retail. It's not one of those watches trading above retail at the moment. and it's cheaper than a lot of the other standard hyped watches out there at the moment.
Absolutely.
Someone's asking when will the auction finish? The auction ends on Saturday, so you have 2 more days to go. Goes into a closing phase Saturday 7 p.m. Closing phase means that each of the lots within the auction closes in sequential order, starting with lot 1 to lot 49, with each item staying for 30 seconds. If there are no bids, if there's a bid, it goes additional for 15 seconds till there are no more bids. That's a question for you, Elias.
Yeah. So it might be
So
someone.
do you want to read it?
Yes. So Aerotour Dynamics asks, considering both GP Laureato and the Chopard Alpine Eagle are both integrated watches, which one is your preference and why?
Is that a loaded question?
I think it might be because I own an Alpine Eagle.
Okay.
So it would be coincidence if this person didn't know me. I would say I prefer the shape of the Laureato, to be very honest. But I prefer the size of the Alpine Eagle for me personally.
Because the Alpine Eagle is pretty small.
It's a 40 millimeter, and with the dial to bezel ratio, it really wears like a 39.
It wears small, yeah.
It wears small.
And it's quite thin.
It's quite thin, and so that's why I have owned one versus the Laureato. But I prefer the shape of the Laureato.
But knowing you've owned a lot of watches, did you keep the Chopard, the Alpine?
It's currently listed with you on consignment.
So why did you look to sell it?
I have too many watches is really the case.
But how long did this one last in your collection?
I've had this one for over 2 years.
Ah, so you've had it for a while.
Yeah,
so enough time to get bored of it.
By Elias standards, that's a good run.
How long do watches typically stay on your wrist?
Look, it varies from time to time, but yeah, like if it's over a year, that's good.
So you rotate.
It's earned its spot.
You rotate typically, every few months to a year.
So now, in the last years, it's gone more from like unless I really dislike the watch, it's every 2 to 5 years.
Every 2 to 5 years.
For example, the last few watches that have come your way have been in my collection for at least 4 or 5 years.
Which is this one single watch which has lasted the longest with you, and why?
Ooh, my most favorite watches are not that old anymore. That's the problem. I'd say probably, just thinking, the Batgirl.
That's the watch you've enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's been in my collection now, one of the longest ones, because
But it's a 40 millimeter.
Yeah, which is perfect for me. 40 is like the upper end of perfect, because all my other older watches have been phased out in the last 6 months.
So Batgirl is your, so far, has been the favorite watch on your wrist.
Yes, probably.
And you've tried a few watches on your wrist.
I've tried many over the last decade, yes.
All right. Well, listen, thank you, Elias, very much.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. 2 more days to go till the auction ends, as we've said. Auction ends on 7 p.m. on Saturday. Like we've said, over the next 2 days, watches typically, unless you try them on your wrist, you don't get the full feel of them. So we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Come along, try these watches on, get a feel for them on your wrist. If you like them, make a bid. Make sure to bid early on these watches, if it's your first time bidding, to get a feel of how the auction works. And like I said, make sure to tune in during the closing phase. Yeah. Thank you so much, man, as always.
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you. Enjoy the diving course.
Thank you.
Enjoy the Maldives.
Thank you.
Come back with lots of stories for us.
I'm sure I will.
Thank you, guys, and have a great evening.